Who is the actual weakest link on the St. Louis Blues? And why do I have a feeling we're all going to say the same couple people? Well, that's because it is obvious and we need to address it. Also, this season right now is on Doug Armstrong and Doug Armstrong only. I'll talk more about it coming up here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My everydayers know that I have been very frustrated right now with this team and what I am seeing on the ice. Despite the fact that there are some players like Robert Thomas and Jake Neighbors that are impressing me, there's also some guys that are really disappointing me, and they've been playing like garbage. We're going to also talk about the season is on Armstrong, so why has he made some of the decisions that he's made? And of course, my favorite Friday segment, Are We Feeling Blue? A lot to discuss on today's episode. Before I dive deeper into things, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, one thing about this season is that it's pretty obvious who is holding back the team. Now, I could go on and say, listen, this is a team sport. You win as a team, you lose as a team. But if I really want to break down what exactly is wrong with the St. Louis Blues, it comes to my mind, at least, that third line, and that is Kevin Hayes. I expected him to be a lot better than he was. And I know I spent yesterday's episode really talking about Kevin Hayes and my goals and expectations for him. But little did I realize that you feel the same way that I do. You feel just as annoyed, just as frustrated. And I think that goes to show at the end of the day, the product on ice from Kevin Hayes just isn't enough in any way. He is not playing the hockey that any of us really expected him to play. We were promised, I don't want to say promised, but we were told when we got Kevin Hayes that we would have a guy that would really help with the third or fourth line, whichever he was on. And honestly, I think he's making it a little bit worse. And I hate to rip on one player in particular, but I mean, you cannot deny the inevitable that he just isn't able to sustain himself on ice as a valuable player. And we have 2 more years left of Kevin Hayes with the contract, and I don't know if the Blues are going to trade him. I say they do, but I don't know if that will happen per se. But on the other hand, again, this isn't my decision, and this is going to go onto something that I'm going to mention coming up, which is about Doug Armstrong. But right now, Kevin Hayes, at least when I think about the weakest link, it's Kevin Hayes. And then if I were to go on defense, that's a tough one because I actually am surprised about one player, but I also want to give a shout out. It's Tyler Tucker's birthday today. So happy birthday, Tyler Tucker. I asked you on Twitter at Locked On Blues who you thought the weakest link was on the Blues this season. And I got a lot of answers, and I don't know if I agree with all of them, if I'm being honest. So the sweater notes says, it's like the whole team. Sonny, Blais, Verana, Kyrou, Krug, Letty, Scandella. Honorable mention, Armstrong. Also, Kapanen. Why did you just mention the whole team? Well, I mean, I guess they are weakest links, but I asked for weakest links. So Zach says for this year's Blais defense is Tucker, 2 players that could have been really vital in the lineup. While I do agree that Sammy Blais has been playing well, I think Tyler Tucker, and I do like him, don't get me wrong, and it is his birthday, so I'm going to be a little bit nice. I just don't see him as an NHL player. He's more of an AHL player. Some people said Torrey Krug. Now, I don't think so. I think Torrey Krug is actually playing a lot better this season than any of us expected. And I hate being negative against a player that actually has been doing quite well this season. Krug's a big body, and yeah, I think we're all collectively going to want him to do more because we expected him to do more. But I wouldn't go as far as saying that he is the quote-unquote weakest link, okay? A lot of Cruz, some Kapanen. Kapanen, too. I mean, Kasperi, he hasn't been playing good hockey. He's been healthy scratched. So, yes, make the argument for the guys that are literally getting healthy scratched that they're some of the weakest links. And this is another popular one, Jordan Kyrou. So, Jordan Kyrou, I hate all the picking on him. He, yes, isn't playing great hockey. Valid. But would I say that he is the weakest link? No. I think that he is one of those players where he just isn't having the best season. But when you think about the weakest link, you think about a player that is dragging down the team, a player that just isn't progressing, a player that just looks lost on the ice. And I don't know if you can make the argument, at least with the team that they have, that Jordan Kyrou is one of those guys. I think that, again, going for a guy like Blais, valid. A guy like Ranera, valid. Tyler Tucker, valid. But I don't know if I would justify Krug or Kyrou. Who would have thought I would have been a Torrey Krug defender after all this time? Not me. I always was like, oh my gosh, I'm the person that can't stand Torrey Krug. And now I'm defending him on this podcast, which just goes to show that, well, I really wasn't expecting that. I guess he just had a better season than I expected him to. I mean, it's obvious that he has been playing better hockey. I just think that as a fan base, we need to realize that he is not the biggest problem that this team has right now. Now, this team has a lot of problems. No denying that, okay? Lots of problems and lots of issues. But Torrey Krug, it's just, there could be worse. And I think that's because I've also seen how frustrating it has been with a Tyler Tucker, even with a Scott Perunovich, who have been rotating back and forth between the Thunderbirds and the Blues. Do I agree necessarily that they've been rotating this season? No. I would prefer, more than anything, to just have consistency in this lineup. There's no reason to switch the guys out all the time. It just creates an consistent dynamic on the ice, if that makes sense. I think that's been another problem with this team, is that it's just so inconsistent. And when you have inconsistency the way that there has been, sure, it's inevitable that the team isn't going to be performing well. And I'm not saying that that is on the players, because obviously it's on the players and they should be the ones being responsible for their own actions on the ice. But I think it also goes to maybe Bannister even, that when you have this inconsistent of a lineup all the time, it's going to show. Some of the best teams make some less transitional moves. Maybe, sure, you have injuries, you have things where you have to move players, right? But just the constant rotating and bringing up, it's messy. And I think that at this point in the season, you kind of know that you're not going to make the playoffs. The wild card, Nashville has been dominant, okay? There's no denying that. They have been winning like there's no tomorrow. So do I think the Blues are going to catch up to the Predators at this point? No. Do I think that the Blues are going to make the playoffs this season? No. Do I think that the Blues need to give some of the younger kids a chance? Yes. Because these are not meaningful games. And I want to explain, they're meaningful games in the sense that they're really good, obviously, games for these younger guys to get a feel for the NHL. But they're becoming less and less meaningful as in games that are going to matter when it comes to the postseason. I think at this point in the season, 20-something games left, trade deadline's a week away. You have to be realistic about what this team is going to do and what you expect them to do. And you can't expect this team to do anything that spectacular when, to be honest with you, they're not good enough. And it's blunt, it's harsh, it's uncomfortable, but they're not good enough of a hockey team. I think that if this team was a good enough hockey team, you would have seen less moving pieces and more consistency, especially in the roster. So it is what it is, folks. It sucks. Trust me, I'm annoyed about it, but it is what it is. I want to let you know about FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. But on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So I'm going to talk about why this is on Doug Armstrong and nobody else. Okay, but here's the thing, though. When we think about Doug Armstrong and what he's done for this team that's been positive, not many things. I mean, I hate to be that negative, but I mean, this past offseason, he had an opportunity to really get some good talent, and he didn't do that. Instead, he had that Kevin Hayes deal. Remember, don't forget, that was supposed to be like the blockbuster deal of the summer, and it just ended up being getting Kevin Hayes. So, not much, and he didn't get rid of anybody, so the cap space was still there. I mean, the problem is, I think Doug Armstrong anticipated for this team to be better, and I said it this summer too. The Blues could go two ways. They could surprise you, and they could play better, and maybe last season was a fluke, or this is just who they are, and right now it just seems like this is who they are, and yeah, the blame does have to go on Doug Armstrong, because at the end of the day, this is his job, his responsibility, and he was unable to do the proper job, which is truly assess this team and see what this team needs. We knew going into the season that the defense, it's problematic. It's not a good defense. And I don't understand how Doug Armstrong, and I'm trying to understand how he looked at this team and thought to himself, yeah, this team's going to be successful. I could tell you the flukes from day one. You could have a really good first line, right? I think right now the line with Thomas, Buchnevich, and Kyrou is actually doing quite well. Other than that, every other line has some kind of flaw to it or problem. And Braden Shen, I love him and I respect him. But as a captain this season, he hasn't done anything that impressive. Which again, it is what it is. The captain doesn't always have to be the player that's the most, dominant on the ice, right? But you look at teams like the Washington Capitals, for example, and they have Alexander Ovechkin. While the Capitals may not be that good of a team this season, it's a clear leader. So you could make the argument that Robert Thomas should have been captain, and maybe they should have just gone with a couple alternate captains this season instead of naming Braden Shen. But I understand that argument for Braden Shen being captain. What it comes down to is competency. And if you're not a competent GM, it's going to show in your team. So there's two options. One, you can try to go on a 7-game winning streak from here on out, which I don't think is going to happen whatsoever. I don't know if this team is going to be able to even win 2 out of their next 7 games. Or you can tank. And I know tanking's giving up. It is, but it's giving up for better potential for the future seasons. You have a good NHL draft coming up this season, okay? Yeah, last season's draft, a lot better of a draft class, no denying that. But this draft, they do have some young, talented guys. Free agency is going to be skyrocketing. So my suggestion would be bring up the guys like Snuggie when he's done college. Allow the younger players to play. Allow both Perunovic and Tucker to play. I'm so sick of swapping these guys in and out. I think bringing up Balduke was a really good move. But again, you're putting a lot of pressure on a kid that has only played a couple NHL games. This late in the season, you got to tank. And if you're Doug Armstrong, you need to apologize to the fan base. When the season is done, I want Doug to go to his end of the season presser and literally say, St. Louis, I apologize for being an incompetent GM. Now, will he do that? I bet the under on that one. But that's really how I feel. I cannot stand Doug Armstrong right now. Firing Coach Craig Berube, our chief, in the beginning of the season was truly an indication that he was panicking as a GM because he knew that he messed up. The first thing you do when your team is struggling is to fire the coach. That is hockey 101. That is sports 101. Sometimes the teams respond and they play better under the interim coach. Most of the times, though, it does not work out that way. Usually when you fire a coach, your team still sucks. Now, I know what you're going to think. Haley, didn't the Blues win the cup when Berube was brought in the middle of the season? Yes. But, again, that cup run was luck. I was actually watching it a little bit again today. Their Game 7 against the Bruins. And that team was special. Petrangelo, Ryan O'Reilly. Like, it just sucks because while we do have some of the same players, it's just the dominant players that really carry the team are no longer with us. And hey, Alex P won in Vegas this past year, so I think that it's safe to say that he's doing just fine not being here on the Blues. But coming up, I want to do my favorite Friday segment. You might be wondering, Haley, we know the answer. I'm still going to do it because I have a really interesting take for this edition of Are We Feeling Blue? Before I dive into that, I want to let you know about my friends over at Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can get your last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, and so much more. And the best part about Game Time, which I love, is that you can buy tickets in the parking lot minutes before the event begins, and they will make sure that you are getting that lowest price guaranteed, so no one's going to scam you whatsoever. So Game Time truly does care about their customers. If you want to join in on the action and join me using Game Time, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, download that Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So, I get it. Really, we have to talk about this segment. Yes, we do. And it's a Friday segment for a reason. We do it every Friday, so I'm not going to just skip over it because we had a bad week as a fan base. Is this a good week for the St. Louis Blues? Obviously, no. But is this a good week for the future of the Blues? And the answer is yes. Why is that? Because now we know next season, no matter what, we're not going to have this bad of a roster. We know that change will now happen. One bad season, okay, you can look past that. Things happen all the time. Now, 2 seasons in a row where it's really bad, yeah, change will have to happen. This will now force Mr. Doug Armstrong to make some moves over the summer. Crazy concept, right? The draft is out in Vegas. Coming up actually in June. It's now March, which is insane how fast time goes by when you're surviving. And this is the true time to take this team to a whole new level. This is the time where you're going to make those good draft picks. You have the trade deadline in 1 week. So make some trades happen. Free up some cap space. Sign some guys who are in free agency. You need to capitalize on all the opportunity that you have in front of you. Stop being so negative. Stop dwelling on the fact that the team isn't a good team and think about ways that this team could be better. You could get better centers. You could get better wingers. You can get better defenders. I like Binnington. I like Joel Hofer, so I wouldn't really worry about who's in net right now. But what I would worry about is these fourth and third lines that the Blues have. They suck. They're atrocious. I'm sorry. I love Oscar Sundqvist, and I'm happy that he's back wearing that blue note. But do I think that he's good? He's good for a fourth line, but his fourth line is so weak that at the end of the day, you're just putting garbage out on the ice. I mean, I laugh, right? Because as much as we like these players, because I feel like a lot of the players on our team, they've been in the league for quite a while, a lot of them, we've grown very fond of them. And sometimes we overlook their actual playing ability. And when I look at the St. Louis Blues, I want a team that's dominant on ice. I want a team that's young, has fresh legs, has good stamina, and I'm not seeing that, okay? Right now, do I think that Drew Bannister will come back and be the head coach of the St. Louis Blues? No, I don't think he will. Maybe he will somehow be like an assistant coach somehow. But I think the Blues also this offseason need to look and get a veteran coach that knows how to fix a team that has potential, because they do have potential, okay? You have Robert Thomas, you have Jakey Neighbors, you have guys that have potential. But they're not at that level yet where they're going to be a contending team. And it's laughable because they were just there, you know? They won the Cup not too long ago, and you can see how quickly things can change. So a little bit of some programming news. I will be at Morning Skate on Monday as the Blues come to Philadelphia. So yes, I will finally be able to get those exclusive interviews with some of the guys on the team. Probably not Kevin Hayes, if you know, you know. But I'm going to try to speak to Robert Thomas and maybe at Jake Neighbors. And of course, I'll sit down and talk to Drew Bannister as well. So it is finally happening. The exclusive Blues Talk is officially coming soon. It only took me about 9 months to do so. So that will happen. And then in June, I'll be out at that NHL draft, as you know. So I'll be able to talk to the prospects. And then next season, I'm going to head down to St. Louis for one of the games because the draft won't be in person. So I can use my trip to go to St. Louis instead. So, and I'm also on Sunday, I will be interviewing a fan that has season tickets because I've been tweeting, I want to talk to somebody that has season tickets. It is for a reason. It is because I genuinely have some hard-pressing questions for those season ticket holders. So a lot coming up next week, probably the best week of this podcast, if I'm being honest. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. And like always, I will talk to you later this weekend. And let's go Blues.